Good afternoon, everyone. We continue our session on the study of the book of Numbers. Now, the book of Numbers, as we arrive here in chapter 31, continues on from where we left off, where, if you recall in chapter 25, that Bilam or Balaam of Beor had used the snare of a Midianite woman to attract the Israelite men to join them to serve and bow down to their gods. And that made God absolutely furious. Now, chapter 31 talks about a final rout of the Midianites. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take vengeance. Now, take vengeance is avenge on the Midianites for the children of Israel. Afterward, you shall be gathered to your people. Now, this whole episode, we are moving towards the end of the 40th year. We are here at the 40th year now. And moving forward, what God is saying is that once this episode with the Midianites take place for the children of Israel, that first generation will be gathered to your people. Now, what this means is that this will be the end of the road for the rest of the senior members of the Israelite wanderings. One of the things that we may not be aware of is that we need to remember that that generation in chapter 13 that refused to go into the promised land have been has been prohibited from entering, and they are to die in the wilderness. And after these 40 years, or practically 38 years or more, they are to be gathered to your people. And this is a euphemism. It's a manner of speech to say that they will come to the end of their lives. But this vengeance on the Midianites is something that they will have to execute before they come to the end of their road, their journey. So Moses spoke to the people saying, arm some of yourselves for war, because it's war with the Midianites. Let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for the Lord. The purpose of vengeance is for the Lord. So God is using the Israelites to apply judgment on the Midianites. And by this, there is an allocation of 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel. You shall send to war. So with 12 tribes, and notice the 12 tribes exclude the tribe of Levi because they are set apart to serve God. And so the tribe of Joseph was broken down into two parts, Ephraim and Manasseh. And with Ephraim and Manasseh, that makes up 12 tribes, and they had 12 parcels of land. That is the same, all the tribes, the 12 tribes that they are supposed to be gathered or assembled together to fight the Midianites. Verse 5, and they were recruited from the divisions of Israel. Notice, 1,000 from each tribe. And if you have 1,000 from each tribe, and there are 12 tribes, so what's going to happen is you would have 12,000 now armed for war. Then Moses sent them to war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to war with Phinehas. That's the son of Eleazar, the priest, with the holy articles, the signal trumpets. By signal trumpets, these are literally the, well, I guess you call them trumpets. They are not shofars, by the way. These are clarions, something that they make for themselves to blow, and these are the signal trumpets for war. And they warred against the Midianites, just as the Lord commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. However, they missed out on the females, which we will learn shortly. Look at who they eventually killed. They killed the kings of Midian with and we have here with Evi, with Rekam, with Zur, with Hur, with Reva, the 5 kings of the Median, and also Bil'am, the son of Beor. They were also killed with the sword. And so all of them ended, right? And so this was the vengeance. The vengeance is complete. It is supposed to be complete and thorough. However, certain problems arise. The children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, took as spoil all their cattle, flocks, and all their goods. They also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, all their forts, which are walled cities. They took all the spoil and all the booty of man and beast. Now, here lies the problem. This whole episode in Numbers chapter 25 started off with a Midianite woman, and it was through the Midianite women that attracted all the men. And so now the women of the Midianites are held captive. They were not summarily executed. Only the men were executed. Then there were spoils and booties, whatever they came to collect from them. Now, spoils and booties include the movables, like the materials they use, the gold, the silver, the precious metals, things that they can use for themselves. And then there were the flocks that they actually captured. When they came back from the war, they brought the captives. The captives would be the men, the children as well, the booty and the spoil. And it came to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to all the leaders of the children of Israel, to the camp in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho. Now that would be the plains of Moab by the Jordan River. That's a huge place. And eventually you also find that would be the place where the book of Deuteronomy is recorded. And Moses, Eleazar, and all the leaders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp, not inside. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, with the captains of the thousands, the captains of the hundreds, who had come back from the battle. Why was Moses angry? Verse 15, Moses said to them, "Have you kept all the women alive? Aren't you supposed to kill them all? Look, these are the women who caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to sin against God in the incident of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now, therefore, remember, kill every male among the little ones, kill every woman who had known a man intimately, meaning they are of marriageable age." Now, whether the woman has known a man or not is irrelevant, but she is of the age to have sex with man. And this is to recognize the fact in Numbers chapter 25, that was the very trick, the very snare that they placed on the path of the men of Israel. But keep alive for yourselves all the young girls who have not known a man intimately. And so they have not they are of an age which eventually they will be marriageable. But as for you, remain outside of the camp 7 days. Outside is the key word. Why? Because they are unclean. Read this. Whoever has killed any person, whoever has touched any dead person, you must go and cleanse yourselves and your captives on the third day and on the seventh day, because 7 days you will be unclean. Purify every garment, everything made of leather, everything made of goat's hair, and everything made of wood. So there is a cleansing ritual. Cleansing ritual. This is required by God of all these from the battle. Verse 21, Eleazar the priest said to the men of war who had gone to the battle, this is the ordinance, the statute of the Torah. Verse 21, this is Torah. Within the Torah, this is a statute which God had commanded Moses. So this is God's doing. And what is required to set apart is only the gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, and lead, everything that can endure fire, meaning you can throw it into the fire and it will not be destroyed. You shall purify through the fire, and it shall be clean, and it shall be purified with the water of purification. Now, the other things for all that cannot endure fire, you shall put through water. So there is 2 phases. You shall wash your clothes on the 7th day and be clean. And afterward, you may come into the camp. So we have one purification by fire. We have one purification by water. This is important because for most of us, we are not familiar with the Torah. And in the Levitical law, there are things that have to be purified with fire, and there are things which is cleansing by water. And so in this case, this is about purification. What is purification? Now, the idea of purification, like you find in verse 23, this idea of niddah, it is the ceremony. This is the ceremony of impurity. Then to be made pure. This is the same process of menstruation, by the way. So if a woman has menses, then they are to go through the ceremony or the ritual of purity. Now, this one here is that the idea of be clean through water, and this is water purification. So we have 2, right? By fire and by water. And so you would wash your clothes on the 7th day and then be clean. This is the whole concept of purification. It is to cleanse the person, the materials as well. God considered the materials to be equally unclean, and God wouldn't want it for any of the rituals. Verse 25, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, do this, count up the plunder that was taken of man and beast. You and Eleazar the priest, the chief fathers of the congregation, what you do now is to divide. 27, divide means to cut in two. Cut in two. And in this case, the plunder into two parts between those who took part in the war, who went out to battle, and all the congregation. So now we have one part. We have the second part here. Verse 28. And levy a tribute for the Lord on the men of war who went out to battle. Now, what is a tribute of war? A tribute is a tax, right? A tax. And it is to be paid to God. It is something that God will take from the men of war, one of every 500 of the persons. So it is one of 500. What does God ask for? The cattle, the donkeys, the sheep. Take it from their half. Whose half? The one who went out to war. Now this one here, you give it to Eleazar the priest as a heave offering to the Lord. And with that, then the priest will share. The next one is this. And from the children of Israel's half, you shall take one of every 50. One of 50. Which means that you're going to take more from the children of Israel's half. Why? Because they didn't go out to win the booty. And so the men of war is giving a token, one every 500. Drawn from the persons, the cattle, the donkeys, the sheep, from all the livestock, and give them to the Levites who keep charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. And so now we have 1/500 of men of war, and these goes to the priests. And then 1 out of 50 from the children of Israel, and this will go to the Levites. So understand, the priests are the Levites, but the Levites are not priests because there are more than priests from the Levites, because the priest always comes from the lineage of Aaron. Now the Levites will be the entire tribe set apart that was redeemed from the firstborn. So they took the role of the firstborn to serve God. The firstborn were redeemed and they go back to the families. Verse 32, the booty remaining from the plunder, which the men of war had taken, was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, 32,000 persons in all, of women whom they had not known to man intimately. Now, the other half is enumerated this way. The half, the portion for those who had gone out to war, was in number 337,500 sheep. So we're talking about men of war, and there is that much. So the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 675, because this would be 1/500 of an offering. The cattle were 36, of which the Lord's tribute was 72. The donkeys were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 61. The persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. And Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's heave offering, to Eleazar the priest, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Verse 42. And from the children of Israel's half, the Moses separated from the men who fought war. Now the half belonging to the congregation were 337,500 sheep, lots. 36,000 cattle, lots. 30,500 donkeys, also lots. 16,000 of persons, also many. And from the children of Israel's half, Moses took 1 out of 50, drawn from man and beast, and gave them to the Levites, who kept charge of the tabernacle of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. Verse 48. Now the officers, notice the officers were over thousands of the army. the captains of the thousands and the captains of the hundreds. What does that mean? This way, these are the officers. The officers comprise of captains of thousands and captains of hundreds. Later, we would see that Saul had made David the captain of 1,000. And it came near to Moses, and they said to Moses, your servants have taken count of the men of war who are under our command, and not a man of us is missing. This is important. No one died. No one died. This is truly remarkable. Therefore, we have brought an offering for the Lord, what every man had found in ornaments of gold, armlets and bracelets and signet rings and earrings and necklaces. Now, what did they want to do? To make atonement for ourselves before the Lord. So verse 50 is a very peculiar verse. Out of the blue, when he came back, they were supposed to go into the ritual of purification. And with that, they said they want to make atonement after that. And so they, in verse 50 says that they want to cover for ourselves before God. Verse 51, so Moses and Eleazar, the priest, received the gold from them, all the fashion ornaments, all the gold of the offering they offered to the Lord. From the captains of thousands, the captains of the hundreds were 16,750 shekels. Those days, precious metal are weighed by shekels. The men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar, the priest, conceived the gold from the captains of the thousands and of hundreds, and have brought it into the tabernacle of the meeting as a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. Now, this is for remembrance. Remembrance. For the children of Israel. And the interesting thing is, they did not sacrifice, and they wanted to make atonement for ourselves, not for the other people they brought back. And so Eleazar and Moses said, bring all these precious metals. And then, after receiving the gold from the captains of the thousands, hundreds, we need to also remember that they are to obey God. And here they want to, they have to be declared as ritually unclean. They wanted to be there in that discussion that they need to be able to atone, and this is the word here, to atone for themselves, to make themselves clean again before God. And they did. And so they brought all the gold of the offering. All the gold was a lot. And they brought it into the tabernacle of meeting for God as a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. They made huge plunder and booty. And by that, the children of Israel came to a close of the battles that they are to engage in, particularly this one that had removed all the women and men and retaining only those that is below puberty, where those who have never had sex before, they're too young to have sex. And they were the ones who were retained so that they will then learn of the Israelites and grow up in Israel and then become marriageable. And that would be the end of our session today.